Here's the top stories for August 7th. Senate archives impeachment raps against Vice President Sara Duterte. Marcos says that the executive has very little role to play in VP Sara's impeachment. According to Escudero, Senate stands by Constitution and rule of law in abiding by Supreme Court's decision. Pagasa warns of flood and landslide risks as the low-pressure area may bring widespread rains over parts of Luzon. Netanyahu hints at expanded war in Gaza. With 19 senators voting in the affirmative, 4 against, and 1 abstention, the Senate moved to archive the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte, adhering to the Supreme Court's ruling declaring the impeachment process initiated by the House of Representatives as unconstitutional. After lengthy deliberation on the motion of Senator Rodante Marcoleta to dismiss the vice president's impeachment complaint, the senators eventually voted to archive the impeachment documents which it received last February 5, 2025, during the 19th Congress. Marcoleta's motion was amended to read, adhering to the immediately executory decision rendered by the Supreme Court en banc on 25 July 2025, which held among others that the articles of impeachment are null and void ab initio, and that the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction over the same. This motion also officially transfers the articles of impeachment against Duterte to the archives. President Marcos said that his administration has very little role to play in the impeachment process against Vice President Sara Duterte. In an interview with the First Post in New Delhi, Marcos made it clear that he never refused to comment on Duterte's impeachment, reiterating that his role does not go beyond being a mere observer. He said that he has not refused to comment on the impeachment process. He just said, and made it very clear that the executive, the president, has very little role to play in the process. Marcos was asked whether he thinks the vice president is capable of getting him killed, citing the death threat she publicly made last year. Marcos said that he doesn't know. He, however, said that his position always comes with some kind of threats, and he takes them seriously. Senate President Francis Cheese Escudero said the Senate is standing by the provisions of the Constitution and rule of law when it voted in favor of heeding the Supreme Court's decision on the impeachment case of Vice President Sara Duterte. Escudero made this clear when he explained his affirmative vote on Wednesday night, July 6th, when the Senate voted to archive the articles of impeachment it received from the House of Representatives. Escudero was one of the 19 senators who voted in favor of archiving the impeachment complaint in deference to the Supreme Court's ruling, in which the High Court said is immediately executory. Escudero said those who refuse to accept the SC's decision with humility, even when it has already decided, is not respect. It is plain arrogance, or if at all, a power play. The Senate chief quoted the landmark case of Francisco versus the House of Representatives, which highlighted the mandate of the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution and the laws of the nation. Escudero recalled that more than 2 decades ago, the Francisco ruling dealt with the same issues being tackled today in the case of the vice president, but it was celebrated back then. However, this time around, the High Court is being reprimanded and questioned on its ruling because of the personalities involved and because the decision is not serving their political agenda. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration on Thursday, August 7th, said the low-pressure area inside the Philippine Area of Responsibility may bring widespread rains over parts of Luzon within the next 24 hours. As of 8 a.m., the LPA was located 95 kilometers east of Casiguran, Aurora. Pagasa weather specialist Chanel Dominguez said it is expected to cross Luzon between Thursday evening and Friday, August 8th, bringing moderate to heavy rains, particularly over Cagayan Valley, Cordillera Administrative Region, and Aurora. Pagasa said the chance of this LPA intensifying into a tropical cyclone within 24 hours has increased from low to moderate. Dominguez said it could intensify into a tropical depression after crossing Luzon or over the West Philippine Sea. Residents in affected areas are advised to remain vigilant for possible flash floods and landslides, especially in mountainous and flood-prone communities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted at wider military action in devastated Gaza on Tuesday. even as former Israeli army and intelligence chiefs called for an end to the nearly 22-month war. The new pressure on Netanyahu came as Gaza's health ministry said the Palestinian death toll had surpassed 61,000. Health officials reported new deaths of hungry Palestinians seeking food at distribution points. As desperation mounts, the Israeli defense body coordinating aid announced a deal with local merchants to improve aid deliveries. Among those speaking out were former leaders of Israel's Shin Bet Internal Security Service, Mossad spy agency, and the military, and also ex-Prime Minister Ehud Barak. In a video posted to social media this week, they said far-right members of the government are holding Israel hostage in prolonging the conflict. Stay updated with the latest news. Visit our website at www.mb.com.ph or follow us on social media. Thanks for tuning in to the Manila Bulletin Daily Rundown.